When I was younger, I don't think I ever thought I was going to do it for a living. And I went to drama school because I met a girl who was the first girl who ever paid any attention to me, and I overreacted catastrophically. It only lasted about 3 weeks. But in those 3 weeks, I think she wrote the letter. She said, you could be an actor. She could have said astronaut. I would have given it a shot. I thought we were, I'd only just finished being a Catholic, and I thought we kissed a lot. And I thought that meant that we were, I had names for our children.
Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Angelique Jackson, Senior Entertainment Writer at Variety. And it is now my pleasure to introduce you to this year's SAG Awards nominees for Outstanding Male Actor in a Leading Role. Austin Butler, Colin Farrell, Brendan Fraser, Bill Nighy, and Adam Sandler. Hello, guys. How's it going?
All right, everybody. Love you guys.
Good morning.
Love you guys. So good to see you,
man. It's good to see everyone.
And congratulations. And this is a really interesting group because somehow you are all first-time nominees. This is the first individual nomination you've gotten from the SAG. Well, what does it mean to you all to be nominated by your fellow actors, the people who know what it's like to, go on these auditions, to face, the potential rejections, to learn the lines, to really do all of the things that you guys have been doing and dedicating your lives to? Adam, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Feels fantastic. What a night when I woke up in the morning and heard that news. It felt amazing. And it was just nice going around and talking to everybody who's in SAG and getting to know everybody. And it of course, it feels good to just be part of that community. And that's good. You guys, who else wants to say something nice? Because
I was just going to say, like, we're all in... we're kind of all in this together, and it feels good to be supported and recognized by an entire union full of other actors. And it makes me feel a sense of pride that I've been a member since 1991. And I kept that wallet in that key. I kept that card in my wallet all the time, just because when things were slow, it made me feel like, well, I'm still here. I'm still in the game. So thank you. Good to see you.
And thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Bill, oh no, please, Colin, go ahead.
Same. Just those two words. One word actually multiplied twice. Same. Yeah, it's lovely. It's, because I don't understand the workings of this whole process and what the road we've all been sharing for the last couple of months of nominations and this and that and the other, and different branches, different bodies of appraisal of performances and films and stuff. But this one is incredibly clearly defined in my mind, and it is that you get a tip of the hat by your own community of actors, and it's it feels really lovely, as the lad said. It's really, really cool.
Absolutely, yes.
It's similarly for me, it has real meaning because, as you say, it's it's voted for by people who do the same thing, and they understand precisely what's involved, and that has real meaning for me. And I love the fact of SAG. I love the idea of trade unions. It's one of the great contributions to society, and they've been kind of under threat in my country. And I love that you have vigorous, healthy, robust unions, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
I love to hear that. I remember being 12 years old and being on my first set and being such an introverted kid who just stuck to myself. And then suddenly I felt this tribe. I felt like I'd found the people around me that I resonated with. And suddenly I started to come out of my shell. And so just like you said, I just love acting so much. And I just feel so grateful that at such a young age, I was able to find my tribe. And then I can't imagine what my life would be like if I didn't, have acting in it, and who I would be. I'd probably be a completely different person. And so I just feel so honored to be here with you all right now and to just be a part of this tribe.
I'd probably be doing Zoom calls with bars in front of my face.
Yeah. Me too, bro.
Possibly. Not to be too negative.
We all might be there. I really love that. The idea that this is a profession, a vocation, a passion that you've all found and navigated your ways through, for this time. And I would love to kind of go back like Austin just did, and Brendan, you did as well, to that moment when you first started and the why. You know, I feel like in each role, we're kind of searching for why we do each role, but why you started acting to begin with. So Brendan, I would love to start with you.
Sure. When I got out of college with a degree, a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Acting from Cornish College, and the local casting director was reading actors from that community on a film called Dogfight with Lily Taylor and River Phoenix. And it was a big deal because for a whole big production to come to Seattle and cast the locals in the smaller roles meant a great deal of work for everyone. So we're all really excited. And so everyone was going in to do these readings. And I was lucky enough to get a call back. And then I got another one and they hired me as sailor number 1. And I got into a brawl with the Marines, because sailors and Marines fight each other. It was in an arcade and I got thrown into a pinball machine and it cracked a rib, but it's cool because they gave me an extra $50. And I got Taft Hartley. I didn't even know what that meant, but I knew it meant that I was allowed to work once for free, but then you got to join the union. But I was like, that's cool. I wanted to make sure I got the card punched so I get to do that too. And then life went on. I came down to California and I got hired to do something else, but I couldn't work on it because I've already had my freebie. So I had to go and join the union, which I did gladly. And I can remember being in the office and the person who signed me in, it was just after 7:00 and I had to get it done before the next day kind of thing. She stayed there late to talk me through it. I wrote her a check for like 700 something bucks. And that was it. I was in. I got my golden ticket. And I remember walking out of the offices on Hollywood Boulevard in those days. And I felt like, okay, I have nothing but opportunity ahead of me now. Like I felt certified. It was so rewarding. And I was all of 22 or 23 years old, something like that. It meant a lot to me. It really gave me a strong sense of like pride and community. I felt like, I'm going to rub elbows with my peers, people I really admire. Just like Colin said, we all go way back to our humble beginnings, but to finally get certified is huge. I've said enough. Okay.
No, you've said exactly it. As we've all kind of reinforced here, it is a community. And I think a lot of the folks watching this video and interested in this conversation are kind of looking for that inspiration, if you will, the idea that you all have navigated through all sorts of different genres and roles and that kind of roller coaster of what being an actor is like. Bill, I'm gonna turn to you next because I was listening to something you said once about fear and how you've learned to kind of use fear throughout, your career and in particular that fear that day, that those 20 minutes or so before you go on to set. And I'm curious, how did you come to that realization and how have you used that as you go into each project?
I don't know that I've used it so much as survived it or come to an arrangement with it whereby I can go to work, whatever my head is trying to sell me. The conversation you refer to is I was talking to a young actor who was in a trailer and had just been given 20 minutes before he had to go on set. And we concluded between us that this was the 20 minutes you got paid for. It was the first day on a movie and he was very, very, he was alarmed. It's a pretty alarming job, whether you're in the theater or anywhere else. I mean, for instance, in the theater, to stand up in front of however many, or, hundreds of people or 100 people and be the only person to talk at length is an alarming prospect. I've never taken it easy. It's never come easy to me. In terms of the union, I remember that when I was a kid, you had to get 40 paid professional weeks. You got given a blue card and you would only get your red full card after you'd done 40 weeks. I think it took me 5 years to get 40 weeks. And if you did one day, that counted as a week. And then you were a member of Equity, and I remember, like Brendan says, when I became a full member when I had the red card, that was a very big deal. But fear, yeah, sure. I mean, I only talk about it generally because I used to think it made me a bad person and certainly a bad actor. And I used to keep quiet about it because I thought that it was, I'd be busted for it or something. And I thought that everybody else was probably okay. But then, of course, you grow older and you discover that everybody's struggling with the same things. acting is something I do after I've got the wind up, which means, I have to deal with my self-consciousness in some way. And I have I don't know, I've never been anybody else, but I think I have an average ability to undermine myself. So I have to, I have to deal with that somehow, one way or the other.
Well, Colin, I was remembering when you'd say undermine yourselves, I was remembering, 14 years ago when Martin McDonagh first came to you with In Bruges. And at one point you kind of almost tried to talk him out of it. And my goodness, aren't you glad you didn't?
I'm so glad he didn't. Yeah, I totally suggested that he recast. I was feeling particularly, at the time I was feeling particularly low on myself. I had enormous amounts of, what would you call it, commercial success, or a very high, very kind of acute rise at the age of 22 or 23. Joel Schumacher cast me in my first American film called Tigerland, and he put me right in the front and center of that. And it was an extraordinary opportunity to work with an incredible bunch of young actors like Clifton Collins Jr. and Shea Wiggum and Matt Davis and Russell Richardson, Tori Kettles, just a bunch of us in Florida in boot camp before we went and told this story that was set around the boot camp environment pre being sent over to Vietnam. And after that, it just went crazy. I just got so many opportunities, and I fell into the trap of wondering if I was deserved of the opportunities that I was given. And there was no way by 22 years of age I could have worked hard enough or known enough to have been deserved of what happened to me. I've since given up that who deserves what and who doesn't deserve and do I deserve. And there's just kind of, it seems that there's just hard work and chance and opportunity. And I talked to my kids about this. He's like, my son asked me once, Dad, how can you, you've had a lot of success. How can you make sure that happens in life, whatever you do? And I said, you can't. I said, there's so much beyond our control, but all you can do is try and find meaning and exercise a bit of discipline and hard work in whatever chances you're given. So yeah, when I met, that's a long-winded way of saying, by the time I met Martin for In Bruges 14 years ago in the Hudson Hotel in New York, I had a rude awakening from the kind of thoughts and self-recriminations that Bill refers to actually winning the battle in my mind. And so I was feeling pretty low about myself. And I sat down with Martin and I said, Martin, I come with a lot of baggage. I said, the script is extraordinary. I would love to do it, but please cast someone else. You can do a lot better. And he went, thank you. Fuck you. You're not the casting director. I want you to be in it. I said, okay. I let him twist my arm very easily. I didn't argue too vociferously with him, but I too have struggled with, it's not even with all this attention and all this acclaim that we're all sharing. And it's a really sweet moment in so many ways. But it doesn't, I swear to God, it doesn't feel like I've arrived. There's no arriving. There's no landing where you think, finally you're getting what you deserve, or finally that you understand what we fundamentally do. I don't feel I understand fundamentally. I'm probably better at hitting a mark, or I might know a little bit more about lighting, but fundamentally I don't know any more than I did 25 years ago. And so if you're really lucky as an actor, you're getting to work. And you're getting to experience moments. And that's all it is. And it's moments after moments with other actors on a set, or maybe afterwards with an audience if somebody ever sees your work and they like it. So it's all these kind of collections of really sweet moments, some of which are difficult and some of which do have, again, as Bill was saying, I remember asking Liam Cunningham on my first job for television, and I would think I was 19. I was doing a thing called Falling for a Dancer, and I asked Liam Cunningham, who was working on it. About 3 weeks in, I noticed my nerves weren't dissipating. Before every single scene, I got the same amount of nerves, and I thought I'd be nervous the first scene, a bit nervous, less than nervous the second one. 3 weeks in, and I was still getting nervous every time I left my trailer. And I said to him, do you still get nervous? And he went, jeez, man. He said, I tell you, if the day ever comes where I stop getting nervous, that's when I'll give up. And so it's that. I still get really nervous because I care and because I'm afraid that I'll be shit and I'll let the writing down. But I'm not just okay with those nerves now. I like them because it just means what it does is it's almost beyond my control. But of all the things that are beyond my control in life, the many things for my inability to arrive at apathy, for that to be something that's out of my control, I'm okay with.
Anybody else still get those nerves every time and not just me? Brendan?
Yes, I concur. Anyway, you're going to ask me.
No, I was going to ask that is that idea of, it is.
This means you're doing something right, I think. Just there to remind you to breathe. At the end of it, you just smile and you breathe and you do your work, just like Colin says.
Austin,
I like that, the nerves thing, and something similar. I have a thing whenever I'm doing a part and I'm terrified or nervous or feel like I'm going to let the director down. I do have the thing of thinking of other actors who would be doing this better than me. I'm like, man, oh man, they definitely could have hired you guys. Would have been fun to see in every part I've done. You know what I mean? But once you're locked in, you're like, all right, I'm the guy. So let's get this going.
Austin, I know you and I have talked about that a bit, even as you first stepped onto set as Elvis.
Yeah. I mean, that was, people often ask me about what I took from that experience of filming that movie. And my answer is usually it's changed my relationship to fear, because I had never felt that type of fear as an actor before. I mean, even being on stage with Denzel doing The Iceman Cometh, it was such a different thing because that was so immediate. This was filming this movie over a year and a half of preparation and then into the filming of it. And so after all that preparation, suddenly you got those moments of truth where all that is going to be able to be in the film is between action and cut. And so suddenly put all this pressure on those moments. And the amount of responsibility that I felt was so intense that the voice started getting very loud saying, you're not enough. You're too small for this. You can't do it. You're not a singer. You're not a dancer, whatever those things were. And just like what all of you who are you're all my heroes. So to hear you say this is so comforting to me. Because in those moments, those voices were still there, but then by the time that you're actually doing the thing, it starts to transmute into a different type of energy in a way to where it then gets like, if you don't, I had times where it started to make me want to implode. But if I could take the attention off of myself and put it onto either trying to affect the audience in that moment or just trying to be present with the other person that I was with, suddenly all that energy that was making my hands shake and my legs shake and all of that, it suddenly got transferred into something else. And so now, I mean, Adam, you just talked about SNL right before I started filming, and saying that was so terrifying for me.
Yeah.
But the feeling of knowing that once you're doing the thing, all that fear that's telling you that you're completely not enough suddenly becomes focused in some way.
Yes.
So now that I'm just trusting in the process of, okay, once we're doing the thing, it's going to be okay. But the fear leading up is really intense.
This is exciting to hear, Austin, because what you've just described is kind of the process that every actor goes through just before they find their confidence in knowing what their job is. And then sometimes you get off and you got to ask somebody like, what happened? You don't remember. Like you go into the zone. I remember that happened on SNL too. Once it was for real, then you're on and you're good. But you think of all of the hand wringing and pearl clutching that went into getting there. It's almost like you got to take your lumps.
Completely.
Exactly what
Plus, the hardest part is going out. Was the hardest part going out as yourself?
Yeah.
At the start, you get
the
monologue. And then oftentimes, as soon as you have someone else to listen to, which is a blunt way of saying, you get out of yourself, literally, you're going off somebody else's energy and you have your other actors bouncing back. Well, then you forget about yourself for a second, which is just a state of grace to find yourself in.
So true. I remember in acting class when I was very young, because I was so self-conscious, and this teacher just said, you can't be self-conscious and other conscious at the same time.
Yeah.
So take it off of yourself and onto the other.
Yeah. Totally.
Good one.
Yeah.
That's why we're all supporting actors, really.
Yeah, really.
There's no lead, as a lead or the biggest part in a film or whatever, you're still a supporting actor, and you're still, sometimes the other actors may allow you to lead, but even as a quote unquote lead, you're following the other actors all the time. You're listening to your fellow actors, you're working off them, unless you've pre-decided what you should be doing in every scene, which I don't think any of us do. You have an idea, of course, what you think the scene's about, and then you stay open to being informed by your fellow actors. So every actor is a supporting actor, you know.
It's good.
Agreed.
I truly think that is something that is such a standout about all of these performances that you all did this year, is that idea that, you know, while these characters may be the protagonist of the story, what really, you know, you grab onto is the relationships that they've built with all of the people that are around them in their orbits. You know, everything from, for you, Bill, you know, this relationship with Miss Harris and how she kind of helps remind him that, you know, maybe this life that he feels like he hasn't quite been living, you know, somebody really finally says it to him as well. You know, all of these relationships, and especially as a woman in this conversation, the women in these films, the grounding forces and also the challenging forces that all of the women in these movies are. It's really intriguing how these dynamics played out. And I would be curious to hear about kind of, you know, one particular scene that you may think of that was really helped or challenged by your scene partner through this film, whoever that may be. Bill, I may start with you on this one.
Well, you mentioned Amy Lou Woods, who brilliantly plays Margaret Harris in Living. She was sensational to do business with, and I had to do some quite exposing stuff. You know, there were reasonably demanding days at the office kind of thing, and she was there, and she was just exemplary, and she never, you know, it's hard sometimes if you don't have the bulk of the dialogue, you know, and she was in, we had a very good connection, and some of the scenes were, you know, they were exhausting, and she was a staunch colleague and a brilliant working partner.
Adam, I'll go over to you next.
Well, yes, I had a lot of nice scenes with Queen Latifah, and we were old friends, and we knew each other for many years, and were a good married couple in there, and had each other's backs, and on and off the set. I love her, and we're close, and we pull for each other, and it made life very easy to do every scene together, where we were completely alone and connected. And it's like everybody's been saying, when you have somebody with you that, you know, like Colin was saying, where you're all supporting actors, you connect with somebody, you go off what they're doing, what they're bringing to you, and it makes it every scene easier.
Yeah. Colin, I'll go to you.
Kerry Condon, who played my sister, or I played her brother. Kerry's extraordinary. Kerry had done a Martin McDonagh play when she was 17. And so Martin was her introduction into the world of drama, really. I think it was her first professional job. I think it was in a small theatre in Galway. Perhaps it was one of his Island trilogies. And so she knew Martin 20 odd years. I've known Kerry for 20 years. We did an independent film, Intermission, long time ago. Kerry's just an animal as an actor. I should say an actress. I don't know whether to say actor or actress, but she's like, no, I'm an actress. Just don't call me an actor. I'm an actor. So if she ever sees that, I hope she's fine with it. That's bad impersonation. But all from a place of affection. But she's an animal of just purity and emotion and strength of character and integrity. And she's that kind of thing where she has a really, as I said, she comes to work with a really clear idea of the scene, and she somehow innately understands Martin's dramatical beats. But she also was really, really open and really supportive. And I just, for me, her character was kind of the heart and soul of the film. Certainly her character was the one who represented hope in the piece. She made the hard decision, and she left the island behind her. She left her brother, she left the community behind her, and she went out to find out what the world could maybe hold and present to her. But she was Yeah, just as the lad said, really supportive, extraordinarily raw, extraordinarily vulnerable. And I was just trying to, honest to God, just trying to keep up with her every day. And sometimes I found, sometimes with actors, you kind of get lost when you're doing scenes because you go from being a supporting actor or a fellow actor to being an observer. Sometimes in moments, I find myself during takes, sometimes becoming an audience member, and you fucking forget that you're supposed to be kind of, you're so engrossed with what you're seeing. So there's kind of two conversations that are happening. You that's trying to stay in the moment of the scene, and another part of you going, holy shit, she's good. And I got a bit of that with Kerry. She was just so extraordinary to watch. And I was so moved by particularly the goodbye scene that she did. I was so moved. And then a scene she did with Barry by the lake, which everybody is talking about in the film, just her and Barry Keoghan, was just, yeah, extraordinary to see. So it's just really, it's more than anything, it's really exciting to be around that.
It's beautiful. It's heartbreaking. And also, I think we can call it a Martin McPlay and a Martin McMovie.
Yeah. Martin, she was in a Martin McPlay Donna.
Brendan, I'll go over to you next.
Angelique, I was going to say that on The Whale, we were afforded 3 weeks to rehearse. And I know that's, I mean, that's generous and rare. You know, you don't get that kind of time. And so to work with Hong Chow meant, and the other cast members as well, that we had that time to organically bond with one another, make all of our mistakes together, learn how to do this together, shake out everything that's not useful before we go to the build set. And at that point, we learned that Charlie and she are so dependent on one another that they have this sibling relationship, although she is his caretaker and the sister of his late lover. And he is the last connection to her. It's a lot of deep, intensive feelings underneath it. And to do that requires, like we all know, a huge leap of faith in putting our trust in our scene partners. And to work with her made me realize, and I agree with Colin totally about that feeling of, I've got a front row seat, to watch this performance. I would go even further. I would forget my lines. I would go up because I'm just lost in what they were doing, what she's doing. She can say more in between lines of dialogue than she does speaking the words very often. In one scene in particular, this was important because she made a choice to chasten him after he's been aspirating on food, and she saves his life. And she's so furious with him, and she still loves him so much. But in spite of that, like a sister, she slaps him one. And it was arresting when she did that on one take. And Darren came over and said, I don't know if you can't beat him. We can't strike you. And she stood up and said, no, it's accurate. It's true. This is how siblings would be with one another. And he actually was convinced by her to keep that moment in the movie. And I think the reason why it works so well is because she and I had this level of trust that we had earned by having rehearsed together and grown to understand who we are as people, to play this big game of make-believe, to bring a relationship from us having been different people and kids into the real world that they're in right now. It's so important to connect with the people that you're doing in a meaningful way. If you can, it's really helpful too.
Absolutely. Austin, I guess we'll wrap this question up with you.
Oh, it's so cool hearing you all talk about each of your stories there. You reminded me of when we were filming, when we got ready to film the breakup scene between Priscilla and Elvis. Olivia de Jong, who plays Priscilla, she felt very strongly that we needed to use cross coverage because she was saying, we don't want this to feel like my line, your line, my line, your line. We want to be able to overlap and be throwing the pills and all this, and then us go down the stairs and have it feel as organic as possible and not have to shoot coverage in the conventional way. And so we kind of talked about that, and then we brought that idea to Baz, and he so beautifully kind of just ran with it. But the way that the sets worked was we had sort of the staircase and the entrance of Graceland on one set. And then on the same soundstage, but, you know, separated by maybe 30 feet, there was the bedroom set. And so that it wasn't actually above it. And so what he said is, and our cinematographer, Mandy, and everybody, they just came together in such a beautiful way, because they said, you know, we'll film the bedroom where you're waking up all through the pills and everything, where she's throwing them at you. And then we'll not cut, run over to the other set, go up the stairs, continue, and then shoot cross coverage as you're going down the stairs. And that was Olivia's idea. And I'm so grateful that we were able to do that, because then we could, you know, certain takes, they would be really subtle, and other takes we would be yelling at each other. But either way, we knew that we were capturing both at once. So that way we could just play and know that he would have something to cut to. So yeah, and we had a lot of time as well. I mean, she was also involved for that, you know, about a year before we actually started shooting. So we had many rehearsals and different things during that time. And then when COVID happened, we would even do Zoom rehearsals with each other and different things. Yeah. So just trying to keep that, just trying to find the life, because with this couple who, you know, has been sort of brought to this iconic status, we were just going, how are they when nobody's looking? How do they fight? How do they, you know, it felt like there was a lot of pressure to just bring that humanity to their relationship. And it was just amazing getting to look in her eyes. And she just had such a, this amazing combination of being both incredibly innocent and seeing the world through the eyes of a young girl, but then having this sort of eternal wisdom at the same time. It's really an unusual thing to find in one person.
I love that you bring the note about humanity here, because that is truly also what you each brought to these various performances, these various roles, these various men. And when you're, you know, first kind of reading a script, looking at a character, what have you kind of found has been your process in seeing that in these roles and kind of evaluating that and what you can bring to that when you look at a character for the first time and are trying to kind of figure out, you know, how to really embody this person or what this person wants or needs or is yearning for. Adam, I'm going to start with you.
Wow. Well, I'm reading a script right now, thinking about what he's going through, what he's feeling in each scene, what brought him to that place. I mean, man, I don't have a really great answer for that, but it's just thinking a lot. For me, I think a lot, try to be that person before we start shooting, try to go through stuff, driving my car, think about certain situations as that person, bring the humanity of it all. I don't know. I want to hear these guys because they speak better than me. So I want to hear what everyone else says.
Well, before we hear what everyone else says, I do want to say with Stanley, you know, this is a character that, you know, on the surface, I think, oh my gosh, of course, Adam Sandler's a perfect person. You know everything about basketball. You know, I feel like you have this kind of innate coach mentality to you as well. But it felt like, you know, one of the lines that has stuck with me since I saw the movie was that monologue that you have where you're kind of giving it to Wancho, saying, you know, obsession is going to beat talent every time. There's something about that really feels. Yeah.
So Adam, that spoke to you, didn't it? It's like that was the movie right there. You know,
it's basically what I had when I was young. Whenever my daughter asked me about what I was like when I was first getting into this, definitely connected to that being obsessed line. Like I just when I was young, that's all I thought about getting into acting is I just want to make it count, want to be as good as I can be. Didn't want to waste anybody's time. Didn't want to blow any shots. And so I just was like dedicated to thinking only about getting as good as I can get and getting information from other actors, other books about acting, putting myself in every situation, failing a lot. And, but just knowing didn't matter if I failed. I just had an inner monologue just saying, all right, you know, you're not going to stop doing this, so let's keep going. And I guess that's what I was telling these guys in the NBA. My God, everybody wants to be in that position. They've been working their whole life, and there's only a small amount of people who get to do what they're doing. So it's a fight to the end. So there will be guys better than you in acting. There'll be people better than anything I can do, but I just always tried to just keep going. So I did connect with that monologue.
What did you tell yourself that made you keep going and not give up in those moments?
Man, I don't know. I think the youth of it all was pretty good. I've heard that from other people. I was just young and couldn't hear about it not happening. I think I told friends growing up when I moved to New York and Hollywood that it was going well. I kept saying, yeah, it's going great. And I would say, yeah, really? Yeah, I say, yeah. And I would just dig little holes for myself to say, you know, Robin Williams, he said I did great the other night. They were like, you met Robin Williams? I was like, in my head, I was like, I didn't really meet him, but he gave me a head nod, but I turned into a bigger thing. So I kind of was trying to just not fail my hometown.
I think that's very good advice, very sound advice, because sometimes that head nod means a lot more than people think it does.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, you know, gosh, I do kind of want to talk about that concept of, you know, really just fighting for it. And I know you all have had that moment throughout your career where you've made it happen, even when, you know, the odds were against you. Whoever casting director said you weren't a fit for a role. What was that thing that made you say, I'm going to keep going? Or how did you keep going? Brendan, I'm gonna go to you next.
I think it's never, and I agree with that. And when you're young, you have this blind faith, and that's good to have. It helps. And I think that you often have to learn early on how to have courage. Because you can't, having courage doesn't mean you're a guy with a funny helmet with a brush on it, you know, and a sword and a little shield. You know, that's not a hero. You have to be scared of something. You have to overcome it. And I think that when you have that energy, when you're younger, you grow to have courage by overcoming all the obstacles. And there are many voices that you'll encounter when you're a young actor that will try and keep you down or distract you or, you know, cast doubt on your choices. And that's part of it. Having the courage to ignore them or own them or just go forward with conviction is half of the job. And once you have the work or you get a result from it that's good, I think I found that if I didn't take it too seriously somehow, whether it was good or it was bad, it gave me the courage to keep going. I guess that's just a long-winded way of saying, just trust in yourself. If this was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Bill, I've heard you say something similar about, you know, like the idea of like everyone can learn lines, but not everyone can do the thing that you guys are doing as actors. What is the thing that keeps you, that really keeps you doing it despite, you know, the ups and downs?
Well, I mean, when I was younger, I don't think I ever thought I was going to do it for a living. And when I came out of drama school, I went to drama school because I met a girl who was the first girl who ever paid any attention to me, and I overreacted catastrophically. I only lasted. I was too keen, and I only lasted about 3 weeks. But in those 3 weeks, I think she wrote the letter. She said, you could be an actor. She could have said astronaut. I would have given it a shot. I thought we were, you know, I'd only just finished being a Catholic, and I thought we kissed a lot. You know what I mean? We kissed a lot, and I thought that meant we were, you know, I had names for our children. I should have carried a sign saying, if you're nice to this boy, you'll never get rid of him. Anyway, I went for I finally got into drama school, but and really the big kind of thrill about that was that I was a student. And I think I can confidently say that I don't think there'd ever been a student in my family, because it wasn't like that then. Nobody was like now, quite rightly, everybody expects to be further educated. It wasn't like that when I was a kid. You know, there was a section of the community who would be further educated, but not you. Anyway, so I went because it was kind of glamorous to be a student, but I didn't think I'd have a life as an actor. And then I did get jobs, and, you know, I'd be like... But it was sort of, I think, 8 years before I didn't have to drive the van, paint. I'm not getting the violins out. I'm just explaining, you know. But it was a long time before I, you know, didn't paint the set or something. And I was just in disguise as somebody who couldn't act. You know what I mean? I was undercover as somebody who shouldn't be there. And so my confidence was non-existent. So I was always retiring. So every time every job came to an end, I'd think, that's it. I'm never putting myself through that stuff again. And then somebody would make a phone call, or somebody would say, there's this guy, and I would get another gig. And it took a long time for me to accept that. You know, I used to hitchhike everywhere. And if people said, where are you going? And I'd say Liverpool. And they'd say, what are you going to do there? I was going there to be an assistant stage manager, with 2 lines or something. I wouldn't say I'm an actor, because I'd say I'm an electrician, you know, because I didn't want to have the conversation about being an actor, because I didn't feel like I was an actor, and therefore I couldn't front it. So it took a long while. Anyway, that's all beside the point, really. Your question being, what kept me going? Well, I never wanted to have the conversation with anybody where they say, you know, that acting thing, you still doing that acting thing? I never wanted that conversation, you know, where you go, no, I didn't. I tried the acting thing, but now I'm doing this other thing. I didn't want to ever have that conversation. It was just vanity. You know what I mean? You know,
well, when was that moment?
I'm not going to take you through the rest of it. It's, you know. Anyway.
No, you could take us through all of it. I think we would all be enraptured to hear
it's fine, it's fine. That's enough now. Come on.
But I do want to know the moment when you did first feel like an actor.
Well, there was a genius called Ken Campbell, who none of you will have heard of. But one of the great things about Ken Campbell, he was an actual genius, and he put on shows. He was a director and writer. And the great thing about him was that he never rehearsed, largely because it meant leaving the bar. And but it was great for me, because the bit that I found absolutely intolerable was rehearsal, because the other actors used to sit around watching you. And I found that excruciating, you know, because they would, you know, because of the scrutiny and because they were actors, you know, and I didn't feel like one. And he didn't rehearse, and you just hit, and the audience was scary too, but they were in the dark and you didn't know them and you couldn't see them properly, and it was fine. So I was better off if you just threw me on stage. Like the guys have been saying, it's the 20 minutes before, you know, it's like, once you're in there, what are you going to do? You know, you've got to do something. So, and sometimes it works out, you know. So, but I suppose when I met David Hare. David Hare is a writer, an English writer and director. And his work, it was the first time I found a new way of dealing with my personal self-consciousness, or my vanity, as it's probably best referred to, which was to see myself as, you know, to use a cliche, a worker amongst workers who was trying to deliver something important into the world. In other words, it wasn't all about my career and where this was going to figure. It was to do with, we had some big information and we were going to deliver it in the most efficient way possible. And I was going to do that within a group of people. And that made me feel good. But it was 20 years before I you know, when I was a kid, I used to fantasize that people would put one day, maybe someone would put the word actor and my name in the same sentence, just as a casual thing, you know, like they just say it at a party or something. They just say, you know, yeah, he's an actor, you know, just like that. I mean, that's the sort of shape I was in. Sorry, you don't need to know any of it, but that was the kind of shape I was in for quite a long time. Anyway, so. Now I'm impossible to work with. Now I'm a diva. I shout at people.
Now it's diva actor in the same sentence.
Yeah, I want a bigger trailer. I want a bigger car. Do you not know who I am? I'm a nightmare. I've become a nightmare.
I feel like there's not a diva in the bunch here, and that's truly, it's so wonderful to hear about. You know, honestly, I know I said a lot of people watching this would want advice and things like that, but I think what they're really going to take away from this conversation is knowing that they're not alone in those feelings of what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Are people ever going to take me seriously in this? And to hear all of you be so vulnerable and to share your experiences, I know I am so grateful for it. And as we do kind of wrap up this conversation, I would love to hear from you all about kind of the takeaway from this as a career. Obviously all these roles I imagine have had, various things that they've brought up or kind of taught you or, changed you in some way. So either, the specific role that we're talking about this year or just acting as a whole, how has this profession, if you will, changed each of you? Austin, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. I was just thinking as you all were talking about those moments of, what keeps you in it. And I was thinking about how many times, especially when I was starting out, but the trap is always there to focus on the things that aren't actually the work. It's even when you're auditioning, it's getting the job, it's the outcome, it's the box office numbers when the movie comes out, or it's what are the critics going to say, or what are the fans going to say, or what. There's all these things that aren't the actual thing that is the process of doing the work. And more and more, I've tried to take my mind off of any sort of outcome-based thinking and get into the fact that the reason why I love it is because of that moment when you feel real truth and you're looking into somebody else's eyes on set and something's coming out of you that maybe you've repressed or maybe you don't experience on a day-to-day basis, or there's something cathartic in that moment, or you have a genuine laugh because somebody just did something in front of you that really made you giggle, or whatever those things are. Because it gets so noisy out there, and I mean, yeah, that's why just trying to keep it about that, I think is really the thing, and it's what you then get to explore in yourself and the things that you get to learn about yourself. Remember that great speech? I think you may have all been there, but that great speech that Viola Davis gave at the Palm Springs Festival, where she talked about sort of the Shawshank analogy of crawling through the piss and the shit and chipping yourself away just inch by inch, just trying to get to the humanity. And I think of all the times that I've ridden home in the car at the end of a shoot day and felt like I didn't get one moment of truth. And, that kind of post-take trauma, as I call it, the feeling where you go, I should have done this and I should have done that. And I'm driving home in the car and feeling awful. And then you go back the next day and you're trying to get better. And I still feel like I have so much to learn. But it's so beautiful when you get those moments where you feel like there's honesty. And so I think that's the thing that's really kept me in it, because it's taught me so much about myself, but it's also allowed me to be, as I say, a part of this community of you beautiful guys that now I'm getting to be around all the time. And you've all welcomed me so warmly. And I feel so grateful to have a tribe of like-minded people that are so kind to me. And so thank you guys.
Thank you, buddy. That was great. Loved what you said.
Thank you.
Anyone want to tag on next?
I'll say it's funny. I have had those moments too. I also have had moments, Austin, where I think I crushed a scene, where I walk away saying, and I crushed that. And then I see the movie and I go, they didn't use any of the stuff I did on the one I crushed? What the hell? I used all the takes where I was staring blankly. But honestly, just career-wise, acting-wise, it's been amazing. It's been amazing. I found something that I love. I love doing with other actors. I love being around. I love getting on a set, being around other people, thinking about ideas, going through it all, trying to be the best you can be with other people. It's been an amazing time. It's close to being at camp your entire life, because you show up, you are excited. there are times when you're shooting that you can be grouchy because you're tired or whatever it is. But ultimately, when you're on the set, you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. I'm getting to go after something and be the best I can be and laugh with people. And like you said, finding genuine moments together, there's nothing better than that. And but I do want to say before it's too late, I love that kind of like what you're saying, Austin, the fact that guys, we've been together. I know Brendan forever, but nobody else we didn't know each other very well. And now I feel like we're good friends, and I can't wait to see you in the future. And I love hearing you speak, and I love your work, guys. And I'm so happy that we're buddies now, and love you. And I wish you nothing but happiness and luck in the future.
You too, man.
So mutual.
Thank you.
I'm truly hoping that we can find something work-wise for you all to do together.
That would be amazing. It would be amazing, and hopefully that happens.
Let's do that.
It's nice that we're having this conversation so others can watch and say, hey, I feel like that too. But I feel like I'm doing it first because you guys talk about your experience. I go, I feel that way too. Exactly. You voiced it better than I could. What can I say apart from I agree it's a privilege to be able to do this job. And there's always going to be in me a voice that feels like, well, they haven't found me out yet. I hope I never lose that because it keeps you hungry. And once you really connect with what you want to do, then it's not a job that you're doing. It's a pleasure. And it's this kind of work. It's nice work if you can get it. And it's the best job in the world and all that. But what makes it all worthwhile is knowing that you're able to share something with one another. And then there's a lasting value to it being carried on as sometimes a part of a cultural legacy. And that's enormous.
Come on, buddy.
Well, thank you all so much. And again, we appreciate your time. And I know that the audience appreciates all of these insights. So thank you, guys. It's nice to see you all. And congratulations.
See you in a couple of weeks, lads.
See you in a
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.